All right, in the second half of this video, we are going to review our two elements, mood and irony. So let's start with mood. Mood, of course, is that feeling or emotion or just the general atmosphere that the author creates for the reader. Things to remember are that mood is always expressed as an emotion word. Remember, this is the emotion that we as the reader are made to feel as a result of a lot of other elements. So it could be things like aggravated or gloomy or tranquil. It's also important to note that mood changes throughout a piece of writing. There's no one mood that covers it all, right? Think back to The Most Dangerous Game, right? The time where Rainsford and Whitney spend on the deck of the yacht in the very first pages is a very different mood than, say, when Rainsford is running through the jungle, trying to escape with his life intact. So mood does shift. So it's always important to focus in on particular sections of the text and really take a look at what the particular mood is at that moment. Now, the last really important idea to drive home with this particular element is that mood literally doesn't exist without the help of other literary elements. It just can't be created on its own. It needs helpers. And the elements that help to establish mood are things like the setting, rich description in the form of imagery and figurative language, and of course, the emotional experiences of the characters as well. If the character is feeling a certain way, then that is transferred to us, the reader, and we will often pick up on that same feeling as well. Let's take a look at an example. Here's an excerpt from The Most Dangerous Game. There was no sound in the night as Rainsford sat there, with the muffled throb of the engine that drove the yacht swiftly through the darkness, and the swish, the ripple of the water of the propeller. Rainsford, reclining in a steamer chair, indolently puffed on his favorite briar, and the sensuous drowsiness of the night was on him. Now remember, unlike in a movie where we have visuals and we have the underscore of the music to help us sort of generate that mood or that feeling, all we have in a story are the words that the author chooses. So we want to really zero in on very specific word choice, right? We've got descriptions like the muffled throb of the engine, right? Just kind of like this gentle shoo, shoo, shoo. And it's the swish and ripple of the wash of the propeller, right? Those are very gentle words, kind of lulling words. Rainsford himself is reclining. That means he's just laying back and puffing on his very favorite tobacco pipe. And then we describe the drowsiness that he feels as sensuous. So all of these words have a very positive connotation. They're very gentle and they help to create the mood of being very relaxed, all right? Now we get to that simply by analyzing the words and the description and the emotion of our main character. Let's try another one. Very different mood here. An apprehensive night crawled slowly by like a wounded snake, and sleep did not visit Rainsford, although the silence of a dead world was on the jungle. Toward morning, when a dingy gray was varnishing the sky, the cry of some startled bird focused Rainsford's attention in that direction. Something was coming through the bush, coming slowly, carefully, coming by the same way, winding way Rainsford had come. So if we look at the descriptions and the figurative language here, we get a very different feeling, a very different atmosphere. So the night was apprehensive. That means it was like very nerve-wracking, right? Full of waiting and anticipation. Just the time is described as a wounded snake, right? Ooh, that's kind of a painful image, right? Moves slowly and deliberately as if every moment just creeped on. And then we have the morning sky described as dingy. All of these words are very negative in connotation, right? And then the anticipation that Rainsford feels as he hears these steps coming closer and closer and closer, all help to create what type of tone? Take a look at these words. Which one best suits the mood of this particular excerpt? If you said tense, you'd be absolutely right. Everything about the language in this particular piece is all about nervousness and suspense and tension. All right, now let's jump ahead to our next focus element, which is irony. Irony, of course, is that special contrast between appearance and reality, typically one in which reality is the opposite of what it seems. Now, we have three different types of irony. We want to make sure that we can distinguish between each of them. Situational irony is what the author or the reader expects versus what actually happens. So oftentimes we can think of this as a surprise or a twist. So you might want to think as your memory cue, situation, surprise, when the author or reader expects one thing to happen, but the opposite occurs. Now, dramatic irony is quite different. This is when the reader knows something that the characters in the story do not know. So essentially, we're in on a secret, and we have to hold on to all of that tension. And we can't tell the characters because they're trapped inside the world of the story, but we have to wait for them to figure it out on their own. Now, just like in real life, secrets cause all kinds of drama, right? So perhaps you can try to use that as your memory cue. Dramatic irony is when we, as the reader, have a secret that the characters don't have, that one or more of the characters don't have. The last type of irony is verbal irony. This is the easiest one to distinguish. This is when someone says one thing but means something very different. We can think of verbal as talking or verbal as voice. And that can help us to remember that this is the one type of irony that's spoken. Now, a lot of people confuse this with sarcasm, and they are very closely related. The biggest difference here is that sarcasm has an underlying tone of meanness, right? It's meant to be kind of rude. Now, we want to always be thinking about why an author might use irony within their story. Well, they can use it to create a lot of different experiences for us. So if we take a look at our little Looney Tunes GIF over here, that's the last thing that Wile E. Coyote expects is going to happen. And we get a really good laugh out of it. It creates humor, but it can also create shock and awe as well. With dramatic irony here, we have a very different type of experience, right? We're filled with anticipation and waiting because we know something that we cannot convey to these characters. Again, sometimes it creates moments of humor, and sometimes it creates a lot of moments of real tension too. With verbal irony, sometimes again, it can make us chuckle because someone is being kind of clever or witty, but verbal irony can also help to characterize some of the characters in our story. So if you think of Regina George here, her use of verbal irony really helps to characterize her as being quite two-faced and pretty nasty as an individual. So each of these ironies is used very strategically for a variety of purposes. Make sure that once you've identified that element, that you ask yourself, okay, what is this particular example really doing for the story?